He died with a Persian poem in his pocket. On the morning of December 1, 1948, the tide receded from Somerton Park Beach in Adelaide, leaving a man propped against the low stone seawall. A young couple, John and Helen Lyons, noticed him as they walked down the concrete steps to the sand. His head tilted slightly forward, his legs stretched straight, a half-smoked cigarette still resting on the lapel of his jacket, balanced there as if he had simply paused to watch the sea and never looked up again. The uniformed body was immaculate. A pale gray suit, neatly pressed, a white shirt fastened with a plain tie, polished brown shoes that showed no sign of a long walk. But the labels from every piece of clothing had been cut away with a sharp blade, leaving only raw-edged fabric stubs where a name or laundry mark should have been. In his pockets, no wallet. No driver's license. No keys. Detective Sergeant Lionel Lean of the South Australian Police arrived to find a gallery of beachgoers already gathering. The tide was turning. The man's skin was cool, his limbs stiffening. He looked, the witnesses kept saying, as if he were asleep, mouth closed, eyes shut, one arm resting across his chest. It took the morgue attendants 10 minutes to carry him up the stairs on a stretcher, his polished heels clicking against the metal rail. John Dwyer at the Royal Adelaide Hospital told a contradictory story. The heart was normal size but showed congestion of the vessels. The spleen was 3 times the expected size. The stomach contained a small amount of food, but no identifiable poison. Despite a deep chemical screening, the pathologist could only conclude heart failure of undetermined origin, no violence, no drowning, no obvious disease. The man's age was estimated at 40 to 45. His height, 5 feet 11. His build, athletic. Fingerprints were taken and cabled to police agencies across the globe. London, New York, Paris, Moscow. Every reply was the same, no match. A dental chart was drawn and circulated. No missing persons matched the fillings in his upper jaw. The unknown man lay in a refrigerated drawer, tagged SM for Somerton Man, while the summer days grew long and hot. Then came the suitcase. On January 12, 1949, a railway worker at Adelaide station recalled a brown suitcase checked in on the morning of November 30, the day before the body was found. The ticket stub, numbered 731, led police to a locker. Inside lay a startlingly personal collection, a stenciling brush, a roll of orange waxed thread, a knife sharpened to a surgical edge, a pair of trousers with sand caught in the cuffs. And on a laundry bag, the name, T. Keane, a lead that evaporated into nothing. No Keane missing, no Keane reported, no Keane at the address on the bag. Back at the morgue, a young constable performing a second, more desperate search of the dead man's clothing found a tiny rolled scrap of paper deep in the fob pocket of his trousers. Unfurled, it bore just 2 words in a delicate serif print, Tamam Shud. Translators quickly identified the phrase as Persian. It means, it is finished. The words are the final line of the Rubaiyat of Omar Khayyam, the 11th century poem about the fleeting nature of life and love. Police now held a riddle inside a riddle. A man with no name. A death with no cause. And a scrap of poetry that pointed nowhere until a local chemist, John Freeman, walked into the station carrying a slim paperback book. He had found it, he said, on the back seat of his car on the night of November 30, parked near Somerton Beach. It was a 1941 Collins edition of the Rubaiyat. Freeman had tossed it into the glove box and forgotten it until the Tamam Shud appeal. The book's final page had been torn out. The jagged edge matched the scrap from the dead man's pocket perfectly. On the inside back cover, someone had penciled a sequence of 50 capital letters in 5 uneven lines, a cipher that no cryptographer has ever broken. Below the letters, a faint local telephone number. The number belonged to a strikingly private young nurse named Jessica Thompson, who lived on Mosley Street in Glenelg, just a short walk from the beach. She told detectives she had no idea who the dead man was. She admitted she had once owned a copy of the Rubaiyat and had given it to an army lieutenant named Alf Boxall in 1945, inscribing it with a verse. But the dead man was not Boxall. Police found Boxall alive and well in Sydney, his own book intact, carrying the nurse's handwritten poem. She never explained how another copy, the same edition, had ended up with a stranger on the sand. The code remains an iron wall. Over 7 decades, mathematicians, wartime cipher experts, and hobbyists have thrown every tool at those 50 letters. The frequency of characters suggests English, but the patterns dissolve into chaos. Some speculate it is a one-time pad, unbreakable without the matching key. Others see the initials of a doomed love affair. Veterans of the British Signals Intelligence Unit at Bletchley Park studied the letters and declared them either meaningless or deliberately unreadable. The case curdled into 3 enduring theories. The first, spycraft. South Australia in 1948 was home to the Woomera rocket range, a joint British-Australian military project, and the Venona decryptions had just exposed a Soviet espionage network reaching into Canberra. The Somerton man's polished attire, the label-free clothes, the cryptic message, all bear the hallmarks of a tradecraft textbook. Perhaps he was a courier poisoned by a microdot of digitalis concealed in a drink. The second, a jilted lover. Jessica Thomson's evasiveness fueled decades of speculation. Years later, researchers discovered she had a son, Robin, born in 1947, who possessed a rare genetic ear anomaly, a missing cusp, shared with the Somerton man. When Robin Thomson died in 2009, his DNA became a key that might unlock the man's identity. The nurse took the answers to her grave. The third, simple suicide. The line, "It is finished," is the end of a poem that urges the reader to seize life's pleasures before the wine runs dry. Perhaps the man, weary and alone, chose a quiet death on a beach after a last cigarette, leaving a marker of resignation torn from a book of beautiful fatalism. On May 19, 2021, South Australia police exhumed the Somerton man's remains from West Terrace Cemetery. Advances in DNA technology offered one final chance to name him. The bones, wrapped in a plastic sheet, were lifted under the glare of filming helicopters. In July 2022, a research team led by Professor Derek Abbott announced a match. The Somerton man was Carl Charles Webb, a Melbourne-born electrical engineer born in 1905. No relatives had reported him missing. No criminal record. No espionage links, just a man who vanished from his own life and reappeared as a cipher. Yet the official case remains open. Police have not formally closed the file, and the code still resists solution. The identification answers who but not why. Why Adelaide? Why the nurse's phone number? Why the torn page, the hidden book, the unclaimed suitcase? The Somerton man, even with a name, still refuses to speak. A bronze plaque now marks the place where the tide washed that morning. Every December, people place flowers and copies of the Rubaiyat against the seawall. They come not for closure, but because this case holds something essential about human mystery. A man stripped of every label except the one he carried in Persian verse, a single phrase that declares an ending but never reveals the story. As long as the code remains unbroken, the Somerton man is not finished at all.